this here video, you're gonna find out why an emergency fund is so darn important, how much you need to save for one, where to keep the cash, and how to manage it over time. It's all covered, just like your emergency fund's gonna get you covered too. Good day to you folks. Money Jim here, your money pal. Having an emergency fund is one of the most important things you can do for your finances. Having one means you got yourself covered, whatever nasty stuff comes your way. Not having one means you skating on thin ice. See, here's the thing about emergencies. You don't know when they're gonna come, what they're gonna be, or how much they're gonna cost. But you know one thing's for sure, they're a-coming. So you better be prepared and make sure you got enough to cover the cost. Otherwise, you know where you're headed to Trouble Town, that's where. A common mistake I see plenty people make is they start investing before they got enough saved for emergencies. Now don't get me wrong, I want everybody to get investing for their future as soon as they can. But you gotta start with rock solid foundations first. And part of that is having an emergency fund. Here's what happens if you don't and something ugly comes your way. You either gotta go sell some of your investments or you gotta borrow money, and that means getting into debt. If you're selling your investments, I'm guessing you weren't planning on selling them so quick, so weren't much point in making them in the first place. Of course, they might have gone up, but there's also a chance that they've gone down. And Murphy's Law says you're forced to sell your investments after they've dropped. And if you get into debt to pay off that emergency, that sure ain't no good neither, because you still gotta pay back the cost, and now you got interest on top, which is gonna keep getting bigger and bigger if you don't pay it off darn quick. So hopefully by now, you're on board with the importance of having an emergency fund. The question is, how much should you save for it? Well, that depends on your situation and your expenses. So you might have heard folks saying you should save 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And I'd agree. Say your expenses are $3,000 a month. There's a mighty big difference between saving $9,000 and $18,000. So which is it? Well, it depends on how secure your household income is. See, if you live with a partner, there's only half the chance of losing all your household income than if you buy yourself. So 3 months works better for couples and 6 months if you're single. I'd also shoot for 6 months if your income is less steady, like if you're self-employed or paid in commission or work for a startup company or a risky industry. No one knows for sure what the future holds, but you know better than most how secure your income is. So the decision about whether to hold 3 or 6 months of expenses in your emergency fund is up to you. Of course, it don't have to be exactly one or the other. Your emergency fund's all about giving you peace of mind. So save until you reach it. Okay, so once you decided how much you're gonna save, now start saving up for that emergency fund as quick as you can. Because until you do, a real life emergency expense could strike at any time. So get it done real quick. You want to be saving 10% of your earnings bare minimum. If you can, I'd recommend putting away 25% of your after-tax earnings. Think about it. If your expenses are 50% of your earnings, and you're only saving 10% for your emergency fund, it's going to take you 5 months to have enough saved up to cover 1 month of expenses. So if you plan on having an emergency fund to cover 6 months, it's going to take you 2.5 years to have enough saved up. And that's assuming you don't actually have any emergencies to pay for during that time. But if you saved up 25% of your take-home pay, it'll take just 2 months for every month of expenses you want to save for. So instead of 2.5 years, it'll take just 1 for 6-month emergency fund. To find out how to make a budget where you can actually afford to save that much, check out this here video. Now, what about if you got debt? Well, that changes things. Get together enough to cover 1 month of expenses first. It's not what you want to aim for overall, but it's a whole lot better than nothing. And then once you got your 1 month of expenses covered, you attack that debt real hard till it's all gone. Especially that high interest debt where you're paying 8% or more a year. And once you got all that debt gone, you can start building up the rest of that emergency fund of yours. If you gotta use your emergency fund while you still paying off your debt, go back and build it up to cover 1 month of expenses. Then start attacking that debt again. See if you ain't got nothing saved. Whenever an emergency comes around, you're probably gonna end up in more debt. And that's the last thing you want when you're trying to get out of debt. So whether you're building up enough to cover 1, 3, or 6 months of expenses, where you gonna keep all them savings? Well, before we move on to that, if you liked what you heard so far, go subscribe to the Money Jim channel, because I got plenty more where that came from. Now, it might be tempting to invest your emergency fund or lock it up for a period to get a high interest. But here's a tip. Don't. The point of your emergency fund ain't to grow it. It's to be there for you whenever you need it. You don't want its value bouncing up and down like a yo-yo like it'll do if you invest it. You want the guarantee there's always gonna be at least as much as you put in there. And you sure don't want it locked away for a number of days or weeks before you can get your money. You want instant access to your emergency fund. Now, having said that, as long as an account's got instant access, ain't gonna charge you any fees or penalties for taking your money out, and is insured against the bank going bust, you can go find yourself the highest interest account you can. We're talking money market and high yield savings accounts. Just don't complicate things. Like I said, the point of your emergency fund is protection to cover your behind when you need it, not growth. Now, plenty times folks don't use their emergency fund right. See, an emergency fund is for emergencies only. Funny that, ain't it? So unless it's a real emergency, it's off limits. As a rule of thumb, an emergency is something that comes out of the blue and you got no choice but to pay it now. So if you knew an expense was coming, like Christmas, vacations, or a new car, or you could put off paying for something unexpected because it just ain't that important, well, those ain't real emergencies. So you just go leave your fund alone. Instead, go save up for those things separate. You can use your emergency fund though if you get an unexpected bill like a medical or dental bill or a car or home repair. Of course, I'd hope you got insurance to cover those things too. You can use your emergency fund to cover the deductible. That's the bit your insurance company don't pay for. You can also use your emergency fund to pay bills if you lose your income. So if you or your partner lose your job, or you ain't getting as much freelance work, or your business runs into a rough patch, that's classic case emergency fund to the rescue. But don't go thinking those luxuries like subscriptions, the latest phone, or eating out, or a vacation justify dipping into your emergency fund if you can't afford it no more. You're just gonna have to put them on hold till your income gets going again. So remember, didn't see it coming, and you ain't got no choice but to pay it now. Genuine emergencies only. Let's imagine your emergency funds all built up. A real emergency comes along and is taking a big chunk out of it, or maybe even all of your savings. What do you do now? Well, build it back up, of course. And don't forget, if your living expenses go up, which they probably will over time as inflation makes stuff more expensive, make sure your emergency fund keeps up too. Check in once a year and see if your expenses would still be covered for long enough. If not, you're gonna have to top it up till it does. Trust me when I say you'll be mighty glad you got an emergency fund when something rears its ugly head. With your emergency fund in place, you won't be caught off guard and you can tackle whatever life throws at you. Consider a bit like insurance. It sure won't make you rich, but it will stop you going broke. So there you have it. All you need to know about your emergency fund. I hope you found that useful. If you did, go subscribe to the Money Jim channel. See you next time, sunshine.